26% of all the silver sitting in COMEX registered inventory was physically withdrawn and pulled into private custody. Not sold on paper, not settled in cash, physically removed. And nobody in the mainstream financial media is telling you what that means. It is Wednesday, March 11th, 2026, New York time. Comment your date below so I can see where you are watching from. If you value this work, subscribe and comment on George Williams. It really helps. I have been sitting with this data all morning. 33.45 million ounces. Gone from COMEX registered inventory in a single 7-day window in January 2026. 26% of the entire registered silver stockpile on the most important futures exchange in the Western world withdrawn for physical delivery in 1 week. And what I am about to walk you through on the Asian report is not speculation. It is the mechanical anatomy of a COMEX delivery squeeze. What it looks like before it detonates, what the signals are, what the numbers mean, and what happens to the paper price of silver when the institutions running this market finally lose control of the gap between the paper they are selling and the physical metal they cannot find. The standard obligation. Nothing in this video is financial advice. I am not your broker, your financial planner, or your portfolio manager. I am an analyst who tracks physical market data, structural supply mechanics, and institutional positioning in precious metals. I am telling you what the data shows. What you do with it is your decision. Do your own research. Before I go any further, I need to hear from you in the comments right now. Drop your country, drop your city. Tell me where in the world you are watching this from. Right now today, with silver sitting at $86 after everything I am about to show you, are you pulling physical metal into your own custody? Are you buying more? Or are you still holding paper? Tell me right now. I am reading every single comment. Let me start with what a COMEX delivery squeeze actually is, because if you do not understand the mechanics, you cannot understand why 26% in 7 days stopped me cold this morning. The COMEX silver futures market operates on a fundamental promise. When you buy a silver futures contract, you are buying the right to receive physical silver at expiration. That is the foundation of the entire paper pricing system. The promise that if you want real metal, the exchange can deliver it. The exchange maintains what it calls registered inventory. The silver sitting in approved vaults that is legally committed and available for delivery against open futures contracts. That registered inventory is supposed to be the physical reality backing the paper claims. It is supposed to be the proof that the paper price is connected to something real. Now here is the number that turns that promise into a question. At the peak of the recent silver rally, the ratio of paper silver contracts outstanding to registered physical silver actually available for delivery reached 356 to 1. 356 paper ounces for every single physical ounce sitting in COMEX vaults available to back them. Read that again slowly. 356 to 1. The exchange was running a system where for every 1 ounce of real deliverable silver, 356 paper claims existed against it. That is not a market. That is a confidence game. It functions perfectly as long as nobody asks for the metal. The moment a significant percentage of paper holders decide they want physical delivery instead of cash settlement, the arithmetic of 356 to 1 becomes the most dangerous number in commodity markets. And in January 2026, a significant percentage of holders decided they wanted the metal. 33.45 million ounces physically withdrawn in 7 days. 26% of registered inventory. Gone. Not cash settled, not rolled into the next contract. Physically removed from COMEX vaults and pulled into private custody. And the traders doing it were not waiting for the contract expiration date. They were paying up, insisting on taking delivery weeks ahead of schedule, pulling bars into their own possession as early as possible. That behavior has one explanation and only one explanation. They did not trust that the metal would still be there when their contract expired. They looked at the inventory data, they looked at the open interest, they looked at the 356 to 1 ratio, and they decided the risk of waiting was not worth the carry cost of taking early delivery. Professional market participants with billions of dollars at stake made the calculation that getting the metal out now was safer than relying on the exchange's promise to deliver it later. That is not a technical trade. That is a vote of no confidence in the paper system expressed in physical metal pulled from a vault. Signal 1. The lease rates. This is the number that tells you how tight the physical supply actually is underneath the paper price. In a normal silver market, when supply is abundant and institutions can easily borrow silver to fulfill delivery obligations, 1-month silver lease rates sit between 0.3 and 0.5%. That is normal. That is what abundant supply looks like. By January 2026, that rate had exploded to 8%. 8, not 0.4. 8. That means the institutions that need to borrow physical silver to meet their delivery obligations are paying 16 to 26 times the normal rate to access metal that is supposed to be plentiful. Read that again slowly. 16 to 26 times the normal borrowing cost. For a commodity the paper market keeps telling you is in adequate supply. You do not pay 16 times the normal rate for something that is easy to find. You pay 16 times the normal rate when the metal is not where the paper market says it is. Signal 2. The registered inventory decline is structural, not cyclical. COMEX registered silver inventory available for delivery has been declining month over month, while the number of open contracts outstanding remains elevated. That divergence is the mechanical precondition for a squeeze. The paper claims are not shrinking. The physical backing behind them is. Every month, those two lines move further apart. The pressure inside the system increases. The 26% withdrawal in January did not relieve that pressure. It accelerated it. Less registered inventory, same number of paper claims, higher lease rates, more early delivery requests. These are not 4 separate stories. They are 4 readings on the same pressure gauge, and every single one of them moved in the same direction in the same month. Signal 3. The 6-year structural deficit underneath all of it. The silver market has been in physical supply deficit for 6 consecutive years. The cumulative shortfall since 2021 has climbed above 820 million ounces, equal to an entire year of global mining output, consumed and gone. A 6th consecutive deficit of 67 million ounces is projected for 2026, and the production pipeline to fix it does not exist. New mining projects take 7 to 15 years to develop. No new supply arrives before 2033 at the earliest. Then, Fresnillo, the world's largest primary silver producer, cut its 2026 production guidance down to 42 to 46.5 million ounces from a previous forecast of 45 to 51 million ounces. The largest silver miner on Earth is producing less silver this year than it planned, in the middle of the 6th consecutive year of structural deficit, with industrial demand from solar panels alone expected to nearly double silver consumption between 2020 and 2030. And China moved. China classified silver as a strategic material and restricted its export to only 44 companies. 44. In the world's largest manufacturing economy, the country that consumes more silver for industrial production than any other nation on Earth has decided how much of it leaves. That decision did not make the lease rates go up. That decision did not cause the 26% withdrawal, but it compressed the available global physical supply before the squeeze even started. It removed a supply safety valve that the paper market had been relying on without acknowledging it. Then the United States moved in the same direction from the other side. Silver was added to the U.S. critical minerals list in January 2026 under Section 232 National Security Investigation, with a July 13, 2026 tariff deadline. America is threatening tariffs on silver imports from the country that just restricted silver exports. Both governments treating the same metal as a strategic national asset simultaneously is not a coincidence. It is a signal about where institutional and sovereign thinking on physical silver supply is headed. It is a signal that the paper price at $86 has not priced. And then the CME raised silver maintenance margins by 36% overnight, triggering forced liquidations that crashed the paper price 13% in 48 hours, while gold fell only 1.3% in the same period. The paper price went down. The physical withdrawal pressure did not go down with it. The lease rates did not collapse back to 0.4% when the paper price fell. The registered inventory did not refill because the CME raised margins. The structural deficit did not reverse. The only thing the margin hike produced was forced paper selling from over-leveraged traders. It did not produce a single new ounce of physical silver. And iShares Silver Trust SLV holdings have been swelling as physical silver migrates out of London and New York vaults into private and ETF custody. More silver leaving the delivery system, not less. While the paper price was being pushed down by margin mechanics, the physical silver was continuing to move in the opposite direction. That is the picture I am sitting with this morning. And now let me give you the 2 scenarios for what happens next with specific numbers, because vague analysis is not useful when the pressure gauge is this elevated. Scenario 1. The squeeze continues to build slowly and detonates at contract expiration. In this scenario, the registered inventory keeps declining through February and into March as more institutional holders insist on physical delivery. The lease rates stay elevated between 5 and 10%, signaling continued physical tightness that the paper price has not acknowledged. When the March contract reaches its delivery period, the open interest relative to registered inventory creates a delivery failure risk that the CME cannot manage through another margin hike alone, because another margin hike simply produces more forced sellers and more early delivery requests from the holders who can afford to stay in. In this scenario, the paper price is forced to gap up violently to attract physical silver sellers willing to part with metal. Bank of America's $135 base case becomes the floor, not the target. The gold-to-silver ratio at 59:1 begins compressing back toward its historical average of 30:1. At current gold prices, that compression takes silver to $156. If gold moves towards $6,000 as multiple institutional desks are projecting, that compression takes silver to $187. Those are the numbers on the other side of a slow squeeze resolution. Scenario 2, a hard default event. In this scenario, the registered inventory falls below the level required to satisfy delivery demands from a single large contract holder who refuses cash settlement. The exchange faces a choice between forcing cash settlement on a contract holder legally entitled to physical metal or going to the open market and buying physical silver at whatever price is required to fulfill the delivery. Going to the open market to buy physical silver in size when lease rates are already at 8% and 26% of registered inventory was already withdrawn in a single week produces a price event that has no ceiling in the short term. The Hunt Brothers corner in 1980 is the only modern historical analog, and in that event, the gold-to-silver ratio compressed to 14:1. At 14:1 with gold at $5,000, silver goes to $357. That is not a prediction. That is the arithmetic of the only comparable event in modern history. I am not predicting scenario 2 as the base case. I am telling you it is not theoretical. 26% of registered inventory withdrew in 7 days. Lease rates are at 8%, against a normal of 0.3 to 0.5. The ratio of paper claims to deliverable physical silver was 356:1. The physical silver that is supposed to back the paper market is moving into private custody at a pace the exchange has never seen during a period of supposed abundant supply. The paper silver price at $86 today is a number produced by a CME margin hike and forced liquidation of paper contracts that require no physical delivery. It is not a verdict on what silver is worth. The physical market, the dealers paying 8% to borrow it, the institutions pulling bars from COMEX vaults 7 weeks early, the ETF custodians watching holdings swell as silver migrates out of the delivery system, those markets are pricing a different reality. And they have been pricing it since January, when 33.45 million ounces left the exchange in 7 days. Paper markets that misreprice structural reality for extended periods always, eventually, correct. Not occasionally, not sometimes, every single time. The squeeze does not announce itself. It builds in the data before the paper price acknowledges it. The data is already there. 8% lease rates, 26% inventory withdrawal in 7 days, 356 paper claims for every deliverable ounce, 6 consecutive years of structural deficit, the world's largest producer cutting output, China restricting exports, the United States threatening tariffs, every signal pointing in the same direction simultaneously. Subscribe to the Asian Report right now. Hit the bell icon and enable all notifications. When the March contract delivery window opens, when the registered inventory numbers update, when the lease rate data moves, you will get the analysis before the institutional desks have finished their morning meeting. That notification is the only early warning system that reaches you before the gap opens. Turn it on. Drop your location in the comments right now. Tell me what country. Tell me what city. Tell me whether you are holding physical metal in your own custody or whether your silver position is a number on a screen behind a brokerage gate. I am reading every single comment. The most informed analysis gets pinned at the top. 33.45 million ounces, 7 days, 26%, 8% lease rates, 356 paper claims per physical ounce. The paper market has a lot of catching up to do.